Hello everyone, this is Mikedot with OnRPG.com, and welcome to another episode of OnRPG's Kicktracker Report, a monthly web series focused on Kickstarter gaming projects that you should know about. For those that are new to the show, each month I go over a handful of new and ongoing crowdfunding campaigns, take a quick look back on campaigns from previous episodes, as well as give some insight on what makes these indie projects so special. For the month of March 2015, I'll start off with some brief news over Kickstarter projects from last month's episode. Underworld Ascendant's campaign was successful with over 143% of its funding goal reached. Various stretch goals have been made possible, including new areas, a new playable lizardman race, companion creatures, and dynamic music. Other stretch goals include co-op play, more extensive avatar customization, and an Underworld builder set were unfortunately not reached in time. The development team is currently planning on having their prototype build available in late 2015 and their pre-alpha build in early 2016. Until then, backers can discuss their ideas on the game, as well as decide to look for the Lizardman race with an ongoing poll. This project was successfully funded on March 6, 2015. Star Mazer has also completed its Kickstarter campaign with over 121% of its funding goal reached. During the campaign, the development team behind the game has announced several crossovers with popular and upcoming indie game titles including Hyper Light Drifter, Shovel Knight, and Aegis Defenders. While not too many details over these crossovers are available, many of the announcements suggest that the characters from these indie titles will play important roles for advancing Brick Stonewood's story in the game. While they did manage to reach one of the stretch goals, including a collab soundtrack with several well-known music composers, including Manami Matsume and the Proto Men, various stretch goals for console, handheld, and mobile devices including the PlayStation 4, Nintendo 3DS, and iPad were not reached in time. The development for the game is now under full-time schedule, and details regarding the game's release are still being planned. This Kickstarter project was successfully funded on February 21st, 2015. With a month of success also brings a few failures. Cosmic Break 2 by Cyberstep has failed to meet its funding goal with only 50% of funding from 524 backers. Now I think it's pretty obvious why this Kickstarter campaign failed, as I mentioned in my previous video that Cyberstep is notorious for careless and greedy monetization of their games, and many users only made a $1 pledge not to support the game, but to voice their opinions on the project, claiming that Cyberstep has not learned their lessons on how to make a fair and balanced free-to-play game. And I'll also admit, I was also one of them that made a $1 pledge just so I could complain about Cyberstep's crappy business practices. But anyway, judging by a few playtests for the game, several images for the game's cash shop has leaked onto Japanese image boards, suggesting that players will have to spend upwards of $8 just to purchase basic tune-up parts like colored chips. Seriously? Even though their Kickstarter campaign has failed, Cyberstep has announced a beta testing date for the Japanese version of the game, suggesting that development for the game will still be proceeding as planned. And despite negative feedback, Cyberstep will most likely proceed with a full launch of the game later this year. Another failed Kickstarter campaign comes from indie studio Forged Chaos with Trials of Ascension, a massively multiplayer online RPG with a strong focus on sandbox gameplay and storytelling. This campaign only managed to gain $2,500 from 204 backers before getting cancelled on March 3rd. While this game certainly has a lot of ambitious plans, the concept behind the game is just too niche and only appeals to a small group of gamers out there that are into punishing game elements, and it also has a fairly generic Western fantasy theme going for it. But besides that, a previous member of the Forged Chaos development team has also spoken up regarding the failed campaign, suggesting that owners from the game have made very poor decisions leading up to the campaign's launch. And to top it all off, this campaign not only failed once, but twice back in November 2003 with the same exact funding goals. The last news update that was made for this game was posted on March 2nd, and currently the future of this game's development is unknown. Next up, a one-man development studio has launched a campaign for Starship Empire, a sci-fi MMO focused on PvP action. Players will be able to cruise the galaxy while taking control of a spaceship crew as they talk, trade, and combat against other players in real time. The game will also feature crew-to-crew combat, ship maintenance, and permanent death. As stated by the creator Bruno Campolo, the game takes a lot of concepts and ideas from EVE Online. Now, I've always liked the open-ended structure of EVE Online myself, but a lot of elements in that game require a hefty amount of time and patience to deal with, and personally for me, I'm just not interested in looking at spreadsheets for hours on end. However, the creator of Starship Empire is looking to make the game as accessible as possible, so anyone can just jump in and play. The creator also plans to make the game with a free-to-play business model in mind, and promises not to include any sort of paywalls on content, which is something I could totally get behind. If the game manages to reach its funding goal, the stretch goals will include improved visuals, crafting systems, faction battles, and more. This Kickstarter project ends on April 11th, 2015. This next Kickstarter campaign has already seen a ton of success and is already well on its way to becoming the next big thing in the MMO industry. Crowfall is a new kind of MMO that mixes action RPG combat with grand strategy gameplay elements. The unique idea behind this game is that players will fight for control over these massive realms, and within each realm, players will have 1 to 3 months to explore and fight their way through the world, or achieve a specific win goal before the world gets destroyed. Once the world is destroyed, players will be sent back to an eternal realm where they can upgrade their character's powers and prepare to fight in a brand new campaign soon after. The development team at Artcraft Entertainment likes to call this system Eternal Heroes Dying Worlds. Now, I like a lot of the ideas that this game has, but I just like to point out that some elements behind Crowfall reminds me of 2 games that are currently in development. First, it reminds me of the upcoming EverQuest Next, as it's a game that also features voxel-based environments. But the thing is that destruction in EverQuest Next is supposed to be permanent, and everything you see in the world can be destroyed. I can't really imagine permanent destruction working too well in EverQuest Next compared to Crowfall without causing issues for player and AI navigation in the long run. I feel that players will have a better sense of freedom to cause as much collateral damage as possible in Crowfall without worries on how it will ruin the game world for others in the long run, since eventually the worlds in Crowfall will be destroyed anyway, so I say go nuts. Second, Crowfall also reminds me of a South Korean MMO in development called Wolf Knights, developed by IMC Games, the same development team behind Granado Espada and the highly anticipated Tree of Savior. Both of these games share a very similar premise of having temporary campaigns and a persistent character progression after each campaign is finished. The main difference between these 2 games is that campaigns in Wolf Knights only last about 2 hours. The worlds are also very small and they don't encourage much exploration, and they're not randomly generated like in Crowfall. But anyway, the reason that I brought these 2 games up is just because they have very similar aspects between them, and I just really like the way that Crowfall uses these similar aspects in a way that's a lot more fun and engaging in my opinion. But anyway, the game plans to have full character customization, multiple classes, and several different campaign rule sets including free-for-all PvP. Their stretch goals include a new playable race, free VIP access for all backers, usable mounts, and more. This Kickstarter campaign ends on March 26, 2015. Last up, a bit of news from a previously successful Kickstarter-funded game comes from City State Entertainment and their upcoming MMO Camelot Unchained, a spiritual successor to the Dark Age of Camelot MMO back in 2001. The development team has recently launched their game into an official alpha test where players can participate in realm PvP action. They've also released a pre-alpha 4 checklist that details each and every piece of development progress. The most notable piece of the checklist comes from a newly released cube system that allows players to build various structures, buildings, and other objects that can be used in the game. However, the cube system is separate from the main game, so players can build their creations even when the servers are offline. Despite a few issues with launching the alpha for Camelot Unchained a few weeks back, the development for the game has been moving at a solid pace. And that's all the time I have for this news recap. And if you'd like to learn more about the games featured in this video, just check out the links in the description below, and don't forget to rate and subscribe for next month's recap. This is Mikedot saying over and out.